Russian forces are retreating from the major city of Kherson, while at the same time advancing on the city of Bakhmut. But this is a really weird move on face value. It's a town many Western analysts say is strategically unimportant, and yet it's become the sole focus of Putin's military efforts since October. Now, open source intelligence estimates place approximately 30,000 Russian troops deployed in the offensive against Bakhmut, making it their largest concentration of forces in the country. I think it's possible that this city is more important than we've been led to believe.
Creating these video rundowns requires a lot of research, learning, and education. If you're interested in continuing your own education, then I think National University is the perfect place. They have VA-approved programs and benefits specifically designed to help veterans of the military, united in their mission to offer a student-centered, world-class educational system that focuses on offering quality, market-relevant programs to lifelong learners. They have more than 75 degree programs. National University uses a holistic, whole-human approach to support their 41,000 students and 190,000 alumni, because they know that cost, time, and lack of support are the biggest barriers for adults trying to go to college or university. National University employs dedicated military enrollment advisors that are experts at helping you navigate your journey as a military veteran. They're a yellow ribbon school with VA-approved programs. Plus, they offer a 25% discount for military veterans and family members, so there's a reduced cost for students who are not using or don't have access to their GI Bill. Jumpstart your new career and learn more by clicking the link in the description.
The first step for them now is to grab Bakhmut, seemingly at the cost of everything else. Putin's got tunnel vision for this city of Bakhmut. It's located about 450 kilometers to the east of Kherson and about 95 kilometers from the border with Russia. At this point, 20,000 civilians remain of Bakhmut's original population of 80,000 civilians. In fact, the chairman of the Ukrainian Center of Defense Strategies, Andriy, claims that Putin likely only allowed Russian commander Surovikin to retreat from Kherson on the condition that he intensifies war efforts to capture the rest of Donetsk Oblast. One thing is for sure. This bet at Bakhmut has a bad side effect for Putin. He's now totally dependent on the ruthless Wagner mercenaries who are spearheading this assault, and their shadowy leader, Yevgeny Prigohizin. Prigozhin has become untouchable as long as Putin remains reliant on him for his only chance of battlefield advances. Prigozhin is now able to go around town openly saying negative comments to the Russian press about how regular Russian army units are performing terribly, how Russian politicians are cowards, and he disapproves of certain field commanders. His criticism of Russian General Lapin may have led to him being fired and replaced. Prigozhin is allowed to do all of this with impunity, afforded to no one else in Russia. He could be a major threat to Putin's power. He's also called for YouTube to be completely banned in Russia because he saw some videos on there he didn't like, so I'll try my best to make this video a safe space for him. There are conflicting reports by analysts of just how much strategic value Bakhmut actually holds today, and I believe there are 4 possible explanations for why this debate is happening. The first theory is that Bakhmut truly holds little strategic value for Russia at all. Evidence of this comes from the fact that there are no major transportation railroad hubs to be found there, no manufacturing industry that's key to any war effort, and clearly the landlocked city has no major naval ports last time I checked. Did the city ever have any military importance? In 1701, Russian Tsar Peter the Great first ordered Bakhmut to be settled and the salt there to be mined. At the time, salt was an extremely valuable commodity and important for food preservation. The strategic importance of the city and its history as a fortress has always been part of Bakhmut. Today, 300 years later, the city of Bakhmut is still mainly known for its salt mines that account for 90% of Ukraine's salt. But salt is no longer worth its weight in gold. New York Times analysts claim that the Wagner Group, their attempts to seize Bakhmut are simply a face-saving effort by Putin to point to newly captured territory. Zelensky reinforced this by saying in a nightly address to the Ukrainian people, Bakhmut is where the craziness of the Russian command is most evident. The idea here is that Russian commanders are insane and sacrificing troops to assault Bakhmut as proof that the war is still winnable for them. Forbes has gone as far as to say Russia is wasting its last good troops on a pointless attack. The Institute for the Study of War is a Washington-based think tank that's called just about everything on the war correctly so far, and they said Russian forces are likely continuing to falsify claims of advances in Bakhmut area to portray themselves as making gains in at least one sector amid continuing losses in northeast and southern Ukraine.
So the claim here is that Russia's Wagner group and its leader Prigozhin
is using Bakhmut and this offensive as a vanity project for a clear victory that will give him more political power to wield in Russia.
So is the battle for Bakhmut really just a clout chase for Wagner mercenaries?
Figuring this out is very important because this is where Russia's main war effort is happening right now. So the second possibility is that this is part of a clever disinformation campaign from Ukraine to downplay Bakhmut's strategic military importance. Zelensky and his commander's comments are designed to make average Russian soldiers who have access to these reports question why they're even fighting a futile, pointless battle there in the first place. We've seen Ukraine effectively control the information space in the past when they misdirected Russia's attention and manpower away from Ukraine's successful counteroffensive in Kharkiv. Many reports from years ago, in 2014 though, say that Bakhmut is very strategically important, and it isn't until 2021 when we start seeing all these reports of Ukrainian officials claiming that it has no value and it's a waste of Russia's time. The third possibility here is that Bakhmut is actually incredibly important to both Ukraine and Russia's war effort, and that's why both sides here have dedicated so many forces positioned here. Ukraine has likely committed around 20,000 soldiers to protect Bakhmut and 30,000 on the Russian side, with recent estimates that both sides have suffered approximately 100,000 casualties. They can't afford to waste manpower.
A Ukrainian medic stationed in Bakhmut said,
"At one time, we had to stabilize up to 130 wounded per day. It's a high price to pay for an unimportant city." The argument that Ukraine has dedicated a sizable fighting force to the city for little strategic reason is questionable. Evidence for Bakhmut's importance comes from the fact that losing it would potentially collapse Ukraine's vital supply lines in the area and place two key Ukrainian headquarters vulnerable at Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. These locations will be put within artillery range. These are command and control centers for Ukraine that would be then pressured by Russian artillery for the first time.
The city of Bakhmut single-handedly protects two Ukrainian headquarters that are responsible for supplying the entire Luhansk and Donetsk region.
So Bakhmut is located on the T-1032 highway that leads directly to one of the largest Russian-controlled cities in Ukraine at Lysychansk. Russian control of this highway would connect these units and make resupply easier for them in the region. Russia recently annexed Donetsk as part of their recent referendum vote.
According to Putin, Bakhmut is rightfully a part of Russia.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called the referendum a violation of UN Charter and international law. So what he's saying here basically is that it's fraudulent and the international community doesn't agree with it. The fourth possibility here is that the offensive at Bakhmut is part of a 2-month-old outdated plan that made sense before but no longer would be useful after the Ukrainian counteroffensive changed everything recently. So what I mean by this is that originally Russia's plan to capture Bakhmut was going to be part of a pincer movement with their forces in the north to encircle 40,000 Ukrainian soldiers. But when Russia lost the city of Izium, it wrecked this plan. I think there's a very good possibility that Russian soldiers in Bakhmut are still following outdated orders to continue pressing forward. I might just be an average infantryman, but wouldn't it make more sense for Russian commanders to have reinforced Kherson and not lost that city instead of trying to push forward elsewhere? But Ukraine is facing major challenges in Bakhmut that mirror some of the challenges that Russian soldiers face in Kherson. The Bakhmuta River that runs through this city acts as a natural defensive line, and this river has actually historically blocked invaders from flanking it. But it's also a double-edged sword now that the bridge was blown up by Russian artillery. Ukrainian defenders now need to ferry resupply across the river in the same slow fashion that was forced on the Russians when they were trying to retreat from Kherson. But why has Russian forces failed to capture this city after months of shelling and ground assault attempts? At Chuck Ferrari, a former Navy SEAL, created a great annotated map of Russian forces attempting to advance on Bakhmut. In it, Chuck explains how the terrain in this area actually works in Ukraine's favor because they can hide their artillery pieces in defilade behind cover on these reverse slopes. So this terrain here allows Ukraine to continue to fire artillery on advancing Russian forces without having to worry so much about return fire. We can see there are 5 Russian headquarters, all located about 4 kilometers outside the center of Bakhmut right now.
So just how fast are these Wagner troops advancing? When, if at all, could they capture the city? Estimates place the Wagner advance at a slow 1 kilometer per week.
And even Prigozhin admitted that they were slowly moving forward at about 100 to 200 meters per day. But at what cost are they moving this slowly? Some clever open source military analysts at The Insider, which is a Russian opposition outlet,
discovered that 500 prisoners that were recruited into the Wagner group were KIA in the last 2 months alone.
They were able to deduce this by looking at photos of condolence letters that Russia sent to the families of the Wagner's troops that were sequentially numbered. So by cross-referencing the numbers, that they were able to figure out that at least 500 prisoners have been KIA.
And about 1,000 Wagner soldiers are KIA in Bakhmut, a steep price to pay for little gains.
Many analysts believe that Prigozhin is working to expand his influence in Russia, while at the same time hiding his ambitions behind all of these big declarations of loyalty to Putin and saying he would never run for any kind of office. The implication here is that Prigozhin is lining up his ducks in a row to become next in line to take control of Russia. So how in the heck is this man able to walk freely and sarcastically criticize the Russian war in Ukraine? Putin is in a pickle here where he is dependent on Prigozhin and his Wagner forces in Bakhmut, which is Putin's greatest chance at some kind of battlefield success right now. The Wagner fighters and their relatively high competence have given Prigozhin some freedoms that aren't allowed to others. It remains to be seen just how long his leverage in Bakhmut will hold up, and how strategically important this city of Bakhmut is. But as Russia escalates the war in retaliation for recent losses, all of this seems to be putting Putin in a more desperate and unpredictable position. Thank you for watching Spare Parts Army. I really appreciate your time. If you have a second, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button, and check out this video while you're here. I think you'll really enjoy it if you like this one.